We live in White River Township, an unincorporated area in Johnson County, Indiana. White River Township began as a forested watershed with lots of clay soil. Even in this natural state, water infiltrated slowly. The water table in most parts was, and still is, fairly high, only 7 feet below ground. The clay soils of Indiana took up to 5 hours for 1 inch of water to be absorbed. 50% of precipitation was dealt with by soaking into the ground, 40% by transpiration or evaporation, and 10% became runoff. With a temperate climate, Indiana dealt with only 40 inches of annual precipitation, so the ecosystem was balanced in spite of this. Then farmers arrived and deforested the area. With all the deforestation going on during this era, the environment's capacity to transpirate and infiltrate was vastly reduced. Now, the water was dealt with even slower, since large vegetation that had previously quickened the process had been cleared for fields. 20% of water now became runoff. Eventually, more people moved in and began building larger communities. Towns sprang up and grew, replacing the clay with even more impermeable surfaces, such as concrete. In fact, the urban growth rate since 2000 for White River Township has been 10%. Non-point source pollution increased, as well as turbulence. When people began realizing that runoff was building up quicker than it could disperse, they began to try to fix the problems. A lack of planning caused these temporary solutions to fail, even making the condition worse at times. With continual growth and urban sprawl, even more trees were destroyed, more impermeable surfaces were created, and more loose soil was washing into the White River and its tributaries. Arguments about what to do were continuous, and the problem was not being dealt with. Now, up to 55% of precipitation became runoff, a ridiculous amount. Meanwhile, precipitation levels were growing thanks to climate change. The climax of this was this June. Major floods hit our area, property was destroyed, and people died. We consulted Mr. Batta, Director of Zoning and Planning for Johnson County, about how this could have been prevented, and what problems led to this tragic event. Mr. Batta explained that, first of all, most developments are prepared for a 10-year flood. A 500-year flood is what happened in June. Then, Mr. Batta gave us a tour of a local subdivision, showing us the techniques and regulations for fighting erosion and controlling runoff. Among these were geoterrain meshes that held the ground together, retention ponds that drained above a certain level, and barriers made of rock or fabric that slowed water and collected sediment. In addition, he told us about how it is mainly erosion that causes Johnson County's poor water quality, which is half the national average. He explained the need for installing sewer systems in heavily populated areas, which will make water quality much better. Plus, requiring sewers to be installed before urban development could slow down sprawl, which has a negative effect on water management. As a group, we concluded that current technology is more than enough to handle the situation, but more education and planning is the key to success. Nevertheless, there are certain techniques that would help. One solution is to add drains and filters to retention ponds and waterways. Regular cleaning of drains, possibly by robots, will need to be remembered. Proper disposal of waste, along with recycling and other basic environmental courtesies, should be employed. Also, planting more vegetation in vulnerable areas will decrease erosion and increase transpiration. By making rock barriers to slow down excess water flow, sediment will settle more easily, and erosion-causing turbulence will decrease. Most importantly, education of homeowners and contractors about hydrology should be used, so they can make informed decisions. This could be helped by incorporating White River Township into a city. There is no all-solving technological solution to this problem. No matter how many filters or drains we put in, education is the only way to stop this issue.